Okay. Well, good morning, y'all. It may not be morning while you're listening to this, but it's morning as I am recording it, so I'll just leave it at that. Thank you all for joining me. My name is Michael Skelton. This is the Call to Serve podcast. So glad you would join me, listen to what I have to say, and moreover, what I'd really like to tell you is I want to hear what you have to say. So please contact us we have a Facebook page, we have Instagram. You can also, we have a phone number that you can call and leave a voicemail, or you can text. If you haven't caught the game that we were playing, trying to give away a gift card, somebody did end up. Josh, he is the winner, and he was the one that was able to guess the meaning behind the phone number that we have. That phone number is 762-2506-308. And of course, if you haven't heard already, what the meaning behind that is that's three different calibers of rifle. So you have a 7.62 millimeter, you have 25-06, and then you have a 308 caliber. The 7.62 and the 308, by the way, very similar. Some would say interchangeable, and oftentimes are, but not exactly the same thing. Anyway, call, text on those. Contact us via Facebook. I want to hear what you have to say regarding the podcast today, regarding any of my past podcasts, and in the future. Also, if you have ideas for podcasts, I want to hear you. Let me know what you think. What should I be talking about here? As a matter of fact, on to the next game that we want to play here, the next prize giveaway. By the way, Josh won a Amazon gift card on that, and I want to give away another Amazon gift card. And what we're going to do is this is going to involve which generation has the best music. Now, you can go back as far as you want, but generally speaking, we're talking about generations who are alive today. So the very farthest we really would end up going to be the greatest generation. Very few, unfortunately, of the greatest generation left. They're beginning to dwindle just because of the hard, cold fact of time. They were such good people, and I have fond memories of my grandparents who are in that generation. We still have some left, so treasure them while you can. But anyway, greatest generation is about the oldest that would even be able to participate. The biggest ones, though, would obviously be the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and then Gen Z. So who has the best music? I want you to call in, text in, let me know, and who you think and why you think they have the best music. Now, as a little bit of an incentive aside, I haven't figured out how we're going to work in a contest here, but it may be who has the best explanation of their own generation's music. But aside from that, I want to give you incentive to call in because I am, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gen X. I'm one of the younger Gen X, but nonetheless solid Gen X. And I'm going to go ahead and let it out right now. I believe that Gen X has the best music. Not by a lot, because the boomers, they have really good music. If you go back, some of their stuff is good, and some of the rockers back in their day laid the foundation for the music that Gen X had, and even carrying on into present day. So anyway, if you're a millennial, if you're a boomer, if you are Gen Z, you better call in and tell me why yours is the best generation of music. And when we say your generation of music, we're not necessarily talking about the span of which people say your generation was born, but more of your generation's coming of age, childhood, teenage, and even young adulthood music. That would be your music. So anyway, go ahead and Facebook, Instagram, call or text at 762-2506-308. That's 762-2506-308. All right, on to the main part of the podcast. What we're talking about today is something we've broached on before in previous podcasts, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do it again a little bit, and you're going to see me come back to this either somewhat regularly, if not regularly, then at least multiple times in the future, even if not just completely regularly. And the reason is because this subject is It's very important. It's one of the most important subjects of today, and that subject is racism. The general biggest title you can put on it is racism. And I'll go ahead and break it down a little bit. The accusations of how racism is still alive and well, and that our country is still a racist country, and so on and so forth. We've talked about that before. We're going to get into this a little bit again, and actually something specific. But this is going to have to do specifically with a man who is a Christian pastor, and he's written a lot of articles. He's given a lot of sermons. I've never heard him refer to himself this way, but I would consider him to be very progressive, very leftist, and he's a big promoter and believer in critical race theory. Which, if you're like me, you're thinking, well, how can that even agree with the Bible? But I'll tell you what, I'm going to give this man the benefit of the doubt. At the very best, that he is just extremely misled. He's misguided by his feelings, his emotions, maybe past experiences that have happened to him. I don't know. Maybe experiences that have happened to close friends or relatives of his own. But in the end, and I'll explain a little bit further, you cannot, if you're a Christian, if you even claim to be a Christian, you cannot reconcile critical race theory with God's teaching, God's ways, anything that is in the Bible. So, just to recap, the biggest reason that I do bring this up again, and that I will a little bit more in the future, is because this divides us. This kind of talk and this kind of conjecture, especially so unsubstantiated, it is an attempt to divide us. Whether somebody truly means to in their heart or not, that's what it's doing. It's chipping away, or at least it's trying to chip away at the unity that we have actually come to see in this country so much. There are some people that are falling for it too. And that's what I mean. And I want to get you back. If you have fallen for this, I want to get you back into the fact that though we are not perfect as a society, as a country, anything, and we never will be, though we are imperfect, we still have come so far, and we still, by and large, are a highly unified country, despite that we have come from all over the globe in the history of the country. Yes, a lot from the Western and the European, but so many other places. There is no other country that is as diverse as the United States is today. And yes, that's a bold statement, and I'm standing by it, that we are still one of, if not the most diverse countries in the nation. So let's get into it. Pastor, his name, and I'm going to pronounce it. If I mess it up, then I don't mean to. It's not meant as a insult. But Thabiti Anyabwile. Thabiti Anyabwile. So that is probably, I messed that up, and I apologize to this pastor and anyone who likes him if I mess that up. But it's an honest mistake if it is. And feel free to, hey, if I did mess it up and you know who he is, call me, text me, let me know how it's pronounced. And I will mention you in my next podcast, and I'll make that correction as well. So let's get started. We're going to go over a particular article that the pastor wrote that essentially what he does in this article, and actually in a lot of his sermons and many other articles, but in this one in particular, I went through this article, and as I did, I just took notes. So the notes are going to be just kind of as I took them. They might be jumping here and there, but I'll be commenting on those as we go. So to start off, the pastor says that being equal is racist, and I'm actually going to take that. I'm going to push it back just a little bit, because there'll be a really good place to address that in just a minute. But he does, however, one of the things that he starts off with is he gives an example of racism in the culture, in our culture, is an example of crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. And again, it's kind of diving right into it, and I know it's going to be all over the place, but crack versus powder cocaine, an example of racism in his estimation. So he says he brings up that there's more severe punishment for crack because black people are the predominant users. Okay, So let's go and unpack this one. First is that is an extremely cherry-picked statistic. And it is true, by the way, that there are the true part is that black people are more predominant users of crack versus cocaine, just powder cocaine, which is more predominantly used by white and other races. But aside from it being a cherry picked statistic, the more important issue here is there's a reason for that, and it's not because black people use it. It's because crack. Okay, he says, let's see. The reason that he brings out the statistic that it's 18 times worse the punishment is, and it is. The punishment for crack is worse than the punishment for cocaine in most states. So, but the reason is because crack is 20 times more addictive and it's 20 times more destructive. And so it's a much bigger deal when someone's busted using, possessing, selling crack than cocaine. Now, they're both terrible. This is not to make light of one or the other. So let me just put that out there. But the reason that crack is punished worse is because it is so much worse. Before meth came along, and I'll briefly touch on that, crack was the worst. It was the most addictive drug, and it was the most destructive drug. It would almost close to the point of where meth is today. It would just take a life that was so good and just turn it around and destroy it within a matter of months. It takes a good life and just destroys it. It really is terrible. Meth is as bad and even worse. Here's another point to that. Is the really stiff punishments, they were and they are aimed at the dealers more than anything. Yes, the users, the end user, the one who gets busted for possession, depending on how much they're possessing and whatnot, they're still going to be in trouble and need to be. There needs to be punishment for wrongdoing, and also it needs to be something to try to dissuade users. There needs to be that. Now, if you want to make the argument that there's more things that we can do, that's fine. But when it comes down to it, you can't just say there's not going to be consequences for that kind of wrongdoing. But back to the point is the very worst punishments are aimed at the dealers. They're aimed at the distributors. So much more than the end user. The last one, you're going to hear me say this phrase is, what about self-responsibility? Again, we're bringing up crimes. We're bringing up pretty bad crimes, pretty significant crimes, and we're using it to make the point of racism whenever it should be the point of self-responsibility. If someone gets busted for crack, if you are hooked on it, if you are addicted to it, if you're a user, self-responsibility needs to be the first and foremost. Okay, that needs one of the first and foremost. Yes. Do we want to help them? Yes, absolutely. We want to help anybody who has fallen into addiction, whether it's crack, whether it's meth, alcohol, anything. We want to help them. But the most important part of that is self-responsibility. You need to take responsibility for that and stop doing it. All right. So the next, let's see, he makes a lot of accusations, pastor does in his article, that are in general. Yeah, he makes a lot of accusations that are very generalized, but he gives no examples or facts to back it up. This is just one example. He brings up Trump and states his racist rhetoric. He talks about Trump's racist rhetoric, but he not one time in his article, in the pastor's article, does he even quote. He gives not a single quote of Trump. And the reason is, and this, by the way, this is not some sort of defense of Trump. This is not a pro or against Trump thing, but I'm trying to make the point that he's just one of many things that so many of the progressives hate, and that's a whole nother story. But whenever they try to say he's racist, whenever they try to say he's one thing or another, they won't give examples, at least not specific examples, or at the very best, they'll give quotes that are very, very out of context. And I want to challenge you, hey, if you say, nope, I've got stuff that I can show you, then call me, text me, Facebook me, whatever. Get me on social media. I want you to tell me, bring those to me. And that way we can address it, talk about it. But that's just one example of so many accusations and general things that he talks about, that he